And now for our keynote presentation, please welcome the CEO of Unity, John Riccitiello.
So I guess late good morning to everybody. And so I'm John Riccitiello, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I believe to be the shape of the world of AR and VR over the next couple of years. Now, as a starting point, I think almost anybody here generally agrees with the premise that the promise of AR and VR is nothing short of massively transformational. I think a lot of us envision a world where literally at the scale of the internet we have sort of 3D compute. We get to see the world in an entirely different way. We get to experience the world in an entirely different way. And I think it's fair to say that most of us probably believe in the fullness of time, 5, 10 years, monitors like these may go away, and many of us may be interacting at work and socially with essentially a pair of glasses that's bringing us the world's data, the world's entertainment, in many, many, many social experiences. And I think that's true and feels true for a lot of us in part, given the just massive capital investment being made by some of the smartest companies in the world. So what I'm not here to do today is to convince you that AR and VR is going to be a big thing. I'm going to assume we agree on that. What I want to talk to you about is when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and what the ingredients are. The point being, I want to try to lay out a framework that I think will actually help the industry, but beyond that, help you figure out when you're putting resources into this marketplace, when you're investing your time and hard-earned money, when you can expect a return on investment and what that might look like. I think it's important that we have that so we don't get too far ahead of ourselves and end up maybe running out of that cash or going bankrupt before we really get a chance to get started. Now, you might wonder, all right, so I run a technology company. What credentials do I have to talk about all of that? And I'll lay out a couple. I've been in the gaming industry for a couple of decades. I've worked on many, many platforms. I've made a career betting on platforms. Whether those platforms are game platforms or they're mobile platforms, I had to have it right. Now, I didn't get it right every time, but frankly, sometimes from what you miss, you'll learn even more. And the point that I'd like to make as well is I've had a chance to be very close to AR and VR. Businesses I invested in several years ago, or at least 4 years ago, things like Oculus and Unity and other things that were sort of the early ingredients for where this was going. So I think I've had a ringside seat, but beyond that, I've had something else. In recent years, I've had the privilege to lead a wonderful company by the name of Unity Technologies. And if you don't know Unity Technologies, we're the folks that make the engine over most everything you play or experience, whether it's in AR, VR, and mobile. And the company is an interesting one, and I'm just going to quickly introduce that before I get into my main thesis. The points that I think are relevant, first off, more than most any company you'll ever come across, or most any company that I've ever come across, Unity is very mission-driven. We are very much on the side of developers. We profoundly believe in the notion of democratization, putting powerful development tools in the hands of developers, frankly, whether they can afford them or not. Solving some of the hardest problems, like building something for multiple platforms or solving a particularly vexing graphics problem. And of late, these last couple of years, we've been doing lots of things to help developers make more money. Frankly, if the balance sheet and the income statement don't work, most developers aren't here. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about these things today. I'm going to talk mostly about AR and VR. But if you want to understand Unity, probably better than any other way to think about it, is we've got about 1,000 engineers building core technology. And if you're a content creator in the world of gaming or AR and VR, you've essentially got, for the price of a Unity license, 1,000 engineers working for you and making a difference. Now, one of the things that we do is we support a whole boatload of platforms. And all of these are supported. You essentially write once and you get the content here for you on whatever, and if potentially all of these platforms. And one of the great bits and pieces about Unity, I think one of the things that sort of really helps developers here, is you don't need to take platform risk. You can write once and go after an Android device, but you also get iOS, you also get PC, you also get Mac, and if you want, you get everything on here, including the AR and VR platform. So we take a lot of risk out of the equation for developers. Now, I could spend a lot of time talking about Unity technologies, but ultimately, to get a better understanding of what's possible, the proof's in the pudding. And what I want to show you is a short demo. It's real-time rendered in Unity, give you a sense of what's possible. Some of you may have seen this. There's multiple chapters, but let's take a quick look at the video.
Hey! Go on!
I heard there were technology problems earlier this morning. I think they continue with us as we speak today. So, rat-a-tat-tat, a bunch more fall down, and then there's sort of a hero moment at the end, and it makes you all feel great. So, try to capture that feeling now, and kind of go with it. So, but putting that aside for a second, there's a couple of points I want to make about this. So we could have shown you that in VR, but I didn't have the opportunity to give you all the headsets this morning. This isn't Oprah. If it was Oprah, I would have absolutely done that. The second point I wanted to make about this is that was made by 8 people, and there's multiple chapters to it. 8 people. And there's an important observation here. As the content industry has matured in my lifetime, you know, I wasn't around for the beginning of television, despite my daughters thinking that I was, but I was around for the beginning of the game industry. And one of the things that's interesting is the great companies in the console and PC game industry, companies like Activision, Take-Two, Ubisoft, Square Enix, Electronic Arts, these were companies all born in the era of the game industry. If you think about mobile, the leaders in mobile, Supercell, Machine Zone, King, these are companies that were born around the beginning of mobile interactive gaming. And one of the things I firmly believe, and one of the reasons I'm so proud to be part of Unity, is because I believe that out there are the people that are going to define the future of AR and VR. Those content companies will be born around this generation because there are different things about AR and VR that matter, and frankly, you guys are going to be the ones that invent it. And that point that you get multi-platform, that you get all that technology support, that 1,000 engineers, means a team of 6 or 8 or 10 or 15 will create the applications that make a fundamental difference as we move forward. Now, one of the things about having that position where we make it so easy for independent developers to make incredible content, but now make that high-end stuff so some of the most important, or largest, if you will, content developers in the world, is that so many of them use Unity. Now, 38% of all mobile content, for example, is built in Unity. And let me help you, sort of digest that just for a moment. 38% is roughly the same numbers, actually a little bit more, than all home-rolled tech or self-built tech of all mobile companies in the world combined. So Unity alone is a little bit bigger than all of the home-rolled tech, all of the home-built game engines. And so there's a lot of space out there. Now, we've also got a darn strong position in the world of AR and VR. We support virtually every platform. And one of the reasons that we do so is so you get that same benefit. Write once, get all the platforms. Now, I want all of these platforms to be super successful. But you don't know which ones will or what new platform is going to come next. So like mobile, like PC and console, you can write once and deploy to multiple platforms. And what that's resulted in is about 2/3 of the world's content, whether it's gaming or automotive, that is built for AR and VR is today built in Unity. 2/3. Now, part of the reason is because you can make things like the Atom demo that I showed you a short portion of a few minutes ago. And part of the reason is for what the promise is. some of the technology to come. So in virtually every engine ever built, one of the limitations is the renderer. We're making the renderer scriptable. You can pull it up out of the core tech and basically do anything you want. If you can dream something that was never possible before, you can build it in Unity. Or if you really have something that is pushing the CPU and GPU so hard that you want to optimize around individual cores, we provide you the tech to make that easy, not complex. And so we've got that position, and that's ultimately the last little marketing I'm going to explain that says why we're inside or why I'm inside, and some of the things I'm going to tell you next might resonate. Now, about a year ago, I put this slide up. And it's not for lack of enthusiasm for the AR and VR world that I own the white line and the industry owns, or at least the industry forecasters, on the red line here. One of the challenges I think we're sort of risking right now is so much enthusiasm that's out there in the marketplace has people forecasting crazy stuff that's going to happen so near term that it's virtually not believable. One of the forecasts I read recently said that the VR marketplace, VR AR marketplace, is going to be $164 billion 3 years from today. Now, the entire game industry, hardware and software, including the juggernaut that is China, is only 2/3 that size after most of my lifetime building to that point. Now, I'm not suggesting it isn't going to get to 164 billion and then 264 billion and then 364 billion. I think ultimately the world of AR and VR, the world of 3D compute, is ultimately going to be as big as the internet. It's going to be trillions, but we're not there yet. And we have to measure ourselves. And so if you look at the shape of my line there, through at least 2022 or thereabouts, I'm a little under the industry forecast. So if you happen to be an industry analyst, and if they show up to events like this, look, I think it hurts us to the degree to which people write articles for the major press and say that our industry is underperforming. It's the the second coming turned out to be the not so coming, and we should write this off. It is going to work. It's just not going to work in the time frame that we like to talk about. Now, I'm going to talk about some of the reasons why. So I'm going to get to price and content, but one of the things that I give so much credit to folks like Oculus and Vive and Samsung and others that were early and big investors, Google, et cetera, they were early and big investors in AR and VR. They put hardware out, serious hardware out, before the market was really ready for it, at price points they weren't ready, but they allowed us all to learn. But by any reasonable standards, think about it, we shipped a hardware platform without controllers. That's not really ready for consumer prime time. That's an early seeding of a developer-oriented marketplace. We weren't quite there. And so we're still not quite there, and I'm going to talk to you about what I think there looks like in a minute. But this particular equation, price and content, is absolutely critical for the understanding of when our industry is going to get to some reasonable level of maturity. And let me explain a little bit of what I'm talking about. Now, price can mean a couple of different things, but ultimately, when you're spending $1,500 or $2,000 to put a brand new tower PC under your desk and you're tethering it to the back of your head through a head-mounted display, and the aggregate spend for a consumer is $2,000, that's a lot of money. And it's really hard to come up with a product in any form of technology other than like a brand new car that sells in any significant volumes at price points like that. The price point's going to have to come down. But there's another equation that I think I'll give you the insight of anybody that supports platforms like I do or have done over the last couple of years or last couple of decades, is this other equation around price, content, and what I'd call the installed base of hardware. So some of the great applications that will show up in AR and VR and did show up in gaming or mobile were written by very small teams, and they were ridiculously innovative. But markets matured to scale when major developers brought out their version of Star Wars or Marvel or these other things. And a lot of times, these things can cost $20, $30, $40, $50, $100 million to build. All of the sci-fi or superhero movies cost over $100 million to build. And for those products to show up, for them to have a reasonable chance of penetrating a market well enough to break even or better. I can show you the math if you want to pull me aside later, but if there isn't at least a very near-term probability of 100 million devices in the marketplace that can play it, they won't build it. They won't build it because it can't make money. And so what needs to change for our market to get to a place that makes any sense at all for you to get the return on investments you want is we're going to need to see the promise of that first 100 million and then the promise of the second 100 million. A couple 100 million devices creates an umbrella for the entire industry to flourish. And I think we're a few years away from that. So what does it take to get to a couple 100 million units? CPU, GPU, head-mounted display, the whole kit, I believe, has got to be significantly under $1,000 for the consumer. It will get there. It's not there today. Secondly, there needs to be a very clear roadmap for content creators to be able to invest now for the content that should live at the point that 100 million is realized. So that's a tough equation, and companies like Microsoft and Google and Facebook being behind these things allows us to trust that they will make the investments. So we're not dealing with simply folks that might not able to get their C round. We've got that, but they haven't yet painted that picture for us, anyone, including me, and I'm as close to an industry insider as you can get. So that's still in front of us. Now, what this slide is a little bit about me talking about what ingredients. So one of the things that gives me a lot of confidence is all of the ingredients are out there. And I'm going to talk about what a few of those ingredients are. I already hit on price. And I'm going to use the word mobile twice. So my sense is the paradigm around mobile driving AR and VR is with us for years to come. It's what's going to happen. I don't believe this industry can work when we're tethered to a big PC. And I don't think this thing can work unless you can walk around your living room or walk around the stage and experience things as you would in real life. You're going to wander around, you're going to run around, you're going to jump, you're going to want to experience things, whether it's AR and examining things across a laboratory or a manufacturing facility or across your office, or as a gamer, you're going to be in some environment jumping, running, and shooting. You're not going to want to do that tethered to a 3-foot cord or just spinning around on an office chair. So I believe it's going to be mobile and mobile, whether that mobile is a mobile phone in the back of your pocket driving this thing, or it is part of the CPU, GPU, part of the head-mounted display. So that's the first requirement. It's going to be mobile, and it's going to be mobile. And the next part is it's going to be under $100,000 for the consumer to get it. And then that content equation will come into play, and we will get to maturity. So these are some of the pieces. You can see an example of every one of those up here right now. They all exist, but they haven't coalesced yet around an individual platform that delivers. My sense is we're going to see that in full flower in 2019, and we're going to see the beginnings of that shape in 2018. Now, if you want to get one example that I happen to be a ridiculous fan of, and let me just, full disclosure, tell you, it's built in Unity, but that's not why I'm talking about it. I'm talking about it because I saw Hamilton and Ghostbusters in New York on the same day. And I like Ghostbusters better. So I hate to admit that. I think it says something about what's wrong with me, but that's not the point that I want to make. So what did they do? They went to Madame Tussauds. They took over a space a little bigger than twice the size of this stage. They put the CPU and GPU in your backpack. You're a Ghostbuster. You have to have a backpack. And the controller was a long stick that vibrated. But when you put the head-mounted display on, you are a Ghostbuster. My head of the art and creative side of AR and VR for Unity was the other Ghostbuster, and we are in an environment that is entirely believable. We saw our vehicle. We were in a haunted house. We were getting slimed, and as we were getting slimed and running around, we felt the air and we felt the moist. It was an absolutely sublime and fun experience. And when we crossed the streams and we were shooting at Marshmallow Man, I had the smell of roasting marshmallows. All right, now, My friends that run The Void are going to be talking this afternoon in the other theater that'll go without a name. But it was a fabulous, fabulous experience. And I tell you, the future is in that experience. It's mobile. You're only doing it once, so it's not $1,000. It's 20-something dollars. I think that's right. I got a free pass. We made the tech, so I don't actually know. I feel like George Bush running for president now. But the overall point was it was a truly fabulous transformative experience. And a point that I would like to tell you is that's coming to your home. That experience will be at your home. So if you want to go to my last slide where I sort of describe the pieces, you're going to be wandering around your home, and whether it's AR, where you can see your furniture and see your windows and see your door handles and see everything you'd want to interact with, or it's VR and it's inside-out cameras ingesting that world for you. Now look, your coffee table may get retextured by a very clever developer who turns it into Mount Doom, but it is going to be in your house, it is going to be mobile, it is going to be under $1,000, and you will feel like Jason Bourne walking into a Paris apartment, or whatever thing you want to imagine, it will all happen there. And my best judgment is it will happen there a little bit more than 2 years from now. So I think it's going to take a bit more time. Not a huge amount more time. Now look, there's a lot of enthusiasm now. It's already happening in bits and pieces. But the question that I wanted to answer for you is to give you a better sense of when it comes together, where you can confidently put one of these things under a Christmas tree or Hanukkah bush or whatever you want to put it under, and it resonates with people because it works. And I think that's the time frame for when that happens. Now, a couple of thoughts. Why do I show a globe? Because it's not hard to see a world where something better than messaging exists in VR or AR. It's not hard to see, putting it on and you travel and you virtually sense the inside of the Taj Mahal on your travels, or the sense that you're, 20,000 leagues under the sea, or wherever it is you are. I have a 20-year-old daughter. I miss her terribly. She's in Maryland. I live in San Francisco. She's amazing at yoga. I'm not. And what I'd love to do is actually look like I am and be with her at the same time, perhaps sharing a meal virtually. That will happen. And the most immersive of game experiences is going to happen. And the points that I wanted to make for you are these. One, it will happen. It's guaranteed to happen. It won't happen at the timetable that people tell us it's going to happen. It's going to be slower than that because the pieces still need to come together. Secondly, if you run into anybody that works for Oculus or anybody that works for Vive or Samsung working on Gear or Magic Leap folks, et cetera, these guys have invested billions. Absolutely invested billions. They have many billions to go. My friend Clay at Google he's investing and building. He's creating something. You know what he's creating? He's not creating Google VR. Brendan and his team are not creating Facebook VR. Gabe and his team are not creating VR for Valve. They're creating the opportunity for you to be in the same position that EA and Activision were in the early 80s when they created their companies to get the game industry off the ground. They're creating the same opportunity that Supercell and Machine Zone and King had in the world of mobile to get their companies off the ground. And this is a simple equation. They created the opportunity. You will create the industry. And I can't wait. So thanks, everybody. Enjoy your day.